There's some indecisiveness in the air. But I promise you, I don't take this lightly. My fantasy draft, it's an important job. I need someone I can trust, and the fantasy footballers are my number one guys. Their ultimate draft kit is the everything I need to get ready for my drafts. Don't dance with the devil in a pale moonlight. Jump on over to www.ultimatedraftkit.com. Without it, you just might be a dead man.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Oh, we're back again, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike, the Fantasy Hitman Wright, back in the house.
I hope everybody had a great weekend. Great 4th of July.
A safe 4th of July.
We did a little fireworks in the street with the kids, and that was fun.
And no Pierre-Paul?
No Pierre-Paul.
I literally just this morning, for the first time ever, saw the unfiltered Jason Pierre-Paul image of what he did to his hand, and I don't know if either of you gentlemen have seen it.
Did you do that to celebrate the holiday?
No, he's actually, I believe, involved in a campaign of people, hey, freaking be safe with your fireworks.
It is always a paranoia thing with the kids, too. Like, we get the little, they got the sparklers, but then they're, like, dripping the sparklers onto their feet.
You got to do the sparklers in the cup.
What is that?
You take a plastic solo cup, you put a hole in it, and then so they kind of, like, shield their hand.
That's genius.
That's how we roll. That's how we roll in the Wright house, safety first.
Safety first.
Next year. 1 year away.
Well, I had to do the dance where I put two of them in the street, and then they wanted the finale to be both at the same time.
Ooh.
So I had to light the two fuses and run. And I took care of it. I have all my toes. Everything's all right. Welcome to the show. We do hope you had a safe holiday, a good day off of work with the families, with the friends. It is July 5th, 2016. The football season is fast approaching. We've been watching the All or Nothing Amazon special on the Cardinals, which just gets you more jacked up for the season. And for David Johnson and that offense.
Bell cow.
I believe
Bell
you mean
cow, David Johnson.
David Johnson.
Yeah. So, it's pretty exciting. It's fun to start thinking about preseason being here very, very soon. We're here to get you ready for your fantasy football seasons. Drafts fastly approaching in August. It's going to be a very, very good time. I got a good quick question. Today is a very fun show. Today we've got we're playing a game called This or That.
Yep.
And we're basically we're comparing players that are very, very close, kind of who would you take of these two guys, making the case for each guy.
Exactly.
And we're even going to bring on Pro Football Focus's, Sirius XM's Brandon Marianne Lee to join us and play a few rounds of that game. So that'll be fun to hear some outside opinions on some of these players. Couple of big announcements that really, one of these is only for today. There is, we're heading to Chicago on Wednesday for the Academy of Podcasters Awards.
And pizza.
And for the podcast movement, and apparently for pizza as well. Deep dish. But there is a vote now for the People's Choice Award for the Academy of Podcasters.
One time only.
It's just one vote. You don't have to go. You don't have to go give us the 2-week adventure, which we appreciated so much and makes me feel horrible that we're now asking for you to support us on another vote, but it helps that it's one time only. And we've made it super easy to do. You just go to footclanvote.com and scroll down, select us if you want to vote for us for the People's Choice Award in the Academy of Podcasters.
Yep. And then we'll find out in a couple days.
That's footclanvote.com.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, if you heard the intro and you've seen the studio now, we have fantasyjocks.com sponsoring the studio. Great company with a bunch of just basically your carrying case of what you need for your fantasy league with the trophies and the rings and the belts. And we're actually giving away some trophies for your leagues and championship belts, and we'll be giving away rings and those type of things. And we're going to do that all season long on jointhefoot.com. So we will be giving away gear from fantasyjocks.com all season long. You can get an amazing trophy for your league and all the engravings and all that stuff. So I'm actually really excited about the amount of cool gear they're providing the show to give away to you, the listener, and make your league all the more exciting. They even have, what did we see this morning? A jacket.
Yeah.
It's like a
so
gold
sweet.
jacket like you would
It's
win
maroon.
the Masters.
Yeah, it's like a Masters jacket. It's maroon. It's fantastic. I am looking into it.
We may need to
our League of Record
order
needs to
those
have
for
that.
all the titles in years past. And then you should get like a patch on it or something if you've won another championship.
I like it.
So if you've won, you put like another patch on there for,
That sounds great to me.
sounds good to me too. And Jason will be probably saying that at the end of the year if his dreams come true. So very, very good show today. It's going to be jam-packed, going to be fun. This is also the first week we are doing 3 shows. And so we're in July. We're doing 3 shows a week. Stay tuned for that. That should drop on Saturday, the 3rd show. So that'll be great. We've got the Ultimate Draft Kit available on the website. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers to get a bunch of new news and information. Got articles on the website. I feel like I could talk for days about the amount of fantasy content we're trying to put out there.
Yep.
Because it's fun. That's what we're doing. We're grinding it out, and it's a labor of love, I will tell you right now. So let's go ahead and get into the quick question, guys. I don't know if you've even looked at it. Here's the question. Would you let divisional matchups dissuade you from taking a certain player? And let me give you an example. Todd Gurley, very high on my board, very high on Jason's board. He's the example. Last year, Seattle gave up the least fantasy points to the quarterback and the wide receiver, 3rd least to running backs. Arizona in the division, 4th least to running backs. San Francisco, who had a bad year, still the 5th least points given up to running backs.
Oof.
You essentially have the NFC West as a run-stopping division. You got 2 divisional matchups each, 6 games out of 16. Does that change the way you think about players? Not necessarily just Gurley, but other players in those situations.
Yeah, I'll speak specifically to Gurley, and it does. It factors into how I ranked him and how I statted him out. Look, I still love Todd Gurley. I think he's a tremendous talent. But the factors of the Rams being a low-scoring offense, and I know that they have to play Arizona and Seattle twice a year. And I didn't even factor in San Francisco, not realizing they gave up such a small amount of points to the running back. So that absolutely factors into how I feel this. You can look at that similarly for you move over to Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham in the NFC East. Wide receivers go ham in that division.
The Eagles gave up the most points to fantasy wide receivers last year.
Yeah,
But guys,
no,
Josh Norman just went to the Redskins.
that's
so
true. That's
brutal.
true. It's
Voice of public opinion. You think that's brutal?
Oh, so he's the best. It wasn't the Panthers. It was all just Josh Norman.
and sure, that's fine, but I don't think that completely absolves the Washington. And Dallas is okay, but you get to play those guys like the Eagles a couple times a week. It gives you a little of a boost.
So I would counter everything you just said with this. Todd Gurley, yeah, he has to play all those teams, but he did last year too. And all the numbers Andy's spouting out here of how great they did, those are how great they did last year, the year where Todd Gurley was great and fine and had good games against Arizona and against some of those top teams. So I'm not, when it comes to an elite player, you brought up Odell Beckham, but Todd Gurley, Julio, Antonio Brown. I mean, when you are a truly elite player, I don't factor it in nearly as much. I will say
Let me
this.
ask. Okay.
For the schedule and looking at how good the defenses are in the NFC West, you've got the AFC East. Is that the team that's the division that's playing against this season, I believe, against the NFC West?
I believe so, because the Patriots Cardinals open up the season. So
Yeah. So, you might want to look at that with the Bills or the Dolphins, those kind of in-between meddling players.
because they got 3 games against four against the division.
Right.
Here's a question for you. A lot of people like to send in questions to the show and say, how much do you pay attention to bye weeks when you draft? Wouldn't you be more inclined to allow divisional situations and defenses be the tiebreaker than you would a bye week situation?
Yes, big time.
Okay. So
Yeah, and just so people know, I'm looking at Gurley, and he torched all those people. I mean, for Arizona. Now, granted, it was, if you remember the game, it was the 4th quarter.
Oh, I
Everything
remember.
was the 4th quarter, so you can't take that away from him. But he was bad for 3 quarters of the game. Arizona did shut him down the next time they played. But Gurley dominated San Francisco and had a great game against Seattle.
Yeah, it's difficult, too, when you got a guy like somebody else I'm moving up on right now. I don't know if I announced it to Jason yet, but I'm moving up on Latavius Murray. I'm just continue to rise on Latavius Murray. That being said, last year it was Kansas City and it was Denver, and he had the volume, but the yards per carry and things struggled. It just makes you think a little bit about the division. San Diego should be improved on defense this year as well. Let's go ahead and get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, let's talk about Danny Woodhead, guys. Danny Woodhead suffered an ankle injury in minicamp. They say he'll be ready for training camp. Nothing to see here?
I think it's nothing to see here.
That was what he had injured before, was his ankle.
Yeah, so as of right now, it's nothing to see here. But I will leave that as a situation that I will be monitoring, absolutely, for his sake and for Melvin Gordon's sake.
Last year, you had 4-game suspension for Antonio Gates to start the season. You had Keenan Allen's injury for the second half. Is there a chance Danny Woodhead was simply the beneficiary of so many opportunities because in the beginning of the season you were missing guys, and the end of the season you were missing guys?
Yeah, I think so. And not completely, because you can go back.
Gordon was inching into the offense in the beginning.
Yeah, you can
and
go back
literally
2 years.
inch by inch is what I mean.
2 years prior, obviously Danny Woodhead had a great year
Huge
before
involvement.
that ankle took him out. So I don't think it's entirely, but there was a lot of specific things that happened to the Chargers that aligned for Danny Woodhead to have those big games in the beginning and the end of the year.
All right, let's talk about Denver's quarterback situation. Everybody's excited about butt fumble, are they not?
Butt fumble's looking good.
Well, it looks like Paxton Lynch, according to the Denver Post, Troy Rink, is setting up to spend his first year as a kind of watch and see type of year, a redshirt year.
I think that would be a great decision for Denver, just based off of how I felt about Paxton Lynch coming into the draft. Of the physical tools are there, but the guy's he's gonna need some time. And we took a look back recently. We were talking about Emmanuel Sanders, and we're going to talk about Demaryius Thomas today and what these guys were able to do last year with horrifying quarterback play. I think Mark Sanchez can play, can play as well as horrifying. So
it's actually the baseline. That's the Mark Sanchez guarantee.
I will play at least good.
At least horrifying. Yeah.
So I think that's the right move.
All right, let's talk about a guy you said you had on one of your dynasty teams, Mike.
You're darn right.
Mike Rice from ESPN said that Malcolm Mitchell, his fourth-round wide receiver from New England, is showing a lot of aptitude in the offense thus far. Coach speak, blah, blah, blah. But it is notable because the offense is so hard to be integrated into early in your career. So I'm looking less at this season. I don't think Mitchell's even a late-round flyer in redrafts. That being said, is he a guy that you should be looking at in dynasty leagues?
I already am.
Well,
yeah.
I realize that, but I mean,
yeah, I think people should be. Look, I think Tom Brady's got at least a few good years left of elite level play, and it was my man Matt Harmon, reception perception. He really put Malcolm Mitchell on my radar. He scored extremely well in Harmon's breaking down the film. So I took a look, and sure enough, man, Malcolm Mitchell, he looks good. His raw numbers or his his physical gifts, it's there. So I think that Malcolm Mitchell moving forward is extremely interesting in the Patriot offense.
Yeah, I agree. Even when Brady goes, Brady's not going to be able to play another 10 years. I don't think.
Right.
But when Brady leaves, Bill Belichick's still there, and he's had good offenses before Brady. I expect he'll have good offenses after. Not necessarily Hall of Fame quarterback play, but Malcolm Mitchell's a guy for dynasty that should be looked at. And I wouldn't draft him this year in just about any situation, but there haven't been good reports from Nate Washington so far. I think he's been struggling a little, so that was one of their pickups. Although
he would have been a sleeper candidate if things look good in camp.
Yeah. Nasty Nate. Nasty Nate has had his day in the sun.
He's always been productive though when he's had his time on the field.
That's true.
Do you think Brady will be able to move to Denver when he gets older to win championships at a horrifying level of play?
Probably, yes.
Okay. Last bit of news, somebody we brought up on the show once before. We're talking running back Josh Ferguson of the Indianapolis Colts. The depth behind Frank Gore is non-existent right now. And Josh Ferguson is an undrafted rookie, but they were looking at him in the fourth round. And so far, reports have been good about how he's performed in minicamp. So, dynasty radar?
Oh,
I think redraft radar.
Redraft radar?
And not necessarily that you have to draft him. Look, when you take those late round flyers on rookie running backs, I like taking them very late as opposed to spending the capital of the guys that are going in the 4th round, because we never know which one of these rookie running backs is going to emerge as the season goes on. But, you know, if you're taking those flyers, DeAndre Washington is just as good a flyer as some of the other guys that get more publicity. Same here with Robinson. And so I would say Ferguson.
Yeah, Booker, another one.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yes.
So my opinion is that while you might not draft him this year, he needs to be on your radar, even in your redraft leagues. Standard leagues, keep an eye out for him because there is nobody else there.
All right, so
Robert Turbin disagrees, but
yes, he always does.
But I like Josh Ferguson. He's interesting.
All right, before we get into this and that, and we talk to Brandon Marianne Lee from Pro Football Focus, I want to take a quick second to thank our sponsor, PristineAuction.com. Mike sent me a text this weekend, and it was a picture of his Mike Evans jersey and his AJ Green jersey framed up on the wall. He got them both.
They look glorious, my friends.
He liked them so much that after he texted and we were playing Overwatch later, he sent me a message, and he's like, "You see how good those look in my office?" I'm like, "Yes, they look good." But you can get all sorts of incredible, authentic autograph gear at PristineAuction.com. Very good friends of the show. The Jordan Reed jersey we have up in our office right now is courtesy of Pristine Auction. And those giveaways that we're doing on Join the Foot, Pristine Auction is providing some autograph gear for those giveaways as well. So you definitely want to check them out. It's really easy to register, and make sure you let them know that you found them from this show, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. So check it out, PristineAuction.com. That's PRISTINE auction.com. Let's go ahead and let's chat with Brandon.
You talking to me?
The Fantasy Footballers are extremely pleased to bring in our next guest. We have Brandon Marianne Lee of Pro Football Focus, her fantasy football. She's on Sirius XM on the Fantasy Channel Bleacher Report. I'm not sure actually where she is not, so which is the truth. How are you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. I'm glad to start my week off with the footballers. That's an honor.
That is great stuff. We had a chance to hang out and meet Brandon at the FSTA, just a delightful person, great stuff, great fantasy knowledge. So we wanted to bring her on and get some takes. We're going to play a quick game because the Foot Clan knows that I love me some games. We're going to play some this or that, guys who are being drafted pretty close in the current average draft position. So we're going to start it at the top with a big one. Brandon, if you are ready. Are you ready?
I'm buckled up. Let's do this.
All right. AJ Green or Dez Bryant. We're going to go with a quick battle of high-end elite wide receiver ones. AJ Green, Dez Bryant. Who are you taking if you're on the clock?
Listen, I love Dez Bryant, but I'm going AJ Green. I think that his success is so closely tied to Tony Romo's existence on the field that I just can't go all in that high. I think Dez Bryant is fantastic, obviously. Over 1,200 yards 3 seasons in a row before last season, 928 yards the season before that. It was great, but last season, even when he was on the field, he wasn't that great. I mean, if you look at his Pro Football Focus grades and everything else that he did, a lot of drops. I'm not saying it was his fault. The quarterback play was beyond horrid. They only won 1 game without Tony Romo. So, I'm going AJ Green because I am a kind of a Dalton apologist.
Yeah. All right. I like hearing that.
You and Jason have that in common. I am not. I have him ranked appropriately.
But even still, even with that, I think all three of us are firmly on the AJ Green.
We are.
Yeah,
we
love it. Love it.
All right, so let's go to another couple of receivers here. Kelvin Benjamin or Brandon Cooks. Kelvin Benjamin obviously coming back from the injury. Brandon Cooks ended the year very strong. Where do you go between those two?
Yeah, I'm a Brandon Cooks girl. I like it. I think that if you are a wide receiver and you've gone over 1,000 yards, he didn't quite get to double-digit touchdowns. He got to 9 last season. But I think that means that Drew Brees believes in you, and I'm a Drew Brees believer. Until that guy goes under 4,000 yards in a season, I'm sorry. I don't know why we keep counting this guy out like he's dead already. He's not. And I know everyone's really high on Coby Fleener, but I don't think that's going to take away from Brandon Cooks myself. I think that he is the guy. So I'm going with him, even though I like Kelvin Benjamin. You know, they like a lot of receivers on that team, and they're not a throw-first offense, totally opposite of the Saints.
So the opening to the season for Cooks, where it was pretty slow, does not concern you? You believe that he is that second half guy?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, the fact that he opened that slow and still got over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
to me,
fair.
that's what won it over for me, actually, as a Brandon Cooks owner last year, who at first was losing games being like, I hate you, Brandon Cooks. In fact, I was Brandon Cooks for Halloween. That's right. I wore a cooking outfit. Yes. I'm not kidding you. This
Wow.
That's awesome.
And I was like, and I had something burned, and I was like, don't worry, I'll do better next week.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
Well,
that's how bad I felt about him. So that is an about face, if I tell you one thing.
I like that you're on the Drew Brees train and the AJ Green train so far. See, we told our audience that she was on top of this game right
Yes.
here, and we agree with you on those points
That's
for sure.
that's how
All
we
right.
judge things, is if people agree with
Yeah.
us.
Oh, yeah.
Then clearly you
That's
know what
the
you're
only
talking
way.
about. And here's a question that you either can't go wrong or can't go right on, depending on your perspective, because we disagree with ourselves in this room on this one. So I'm gonna stick with the wide receivers on the same team, the Arizona Cardinals. Who is it gonna be this year between Michael Floyd and John Brown? Who's going to take the step forward?
I think it's Michael Floyd.
Yes.
I enjoy all of them. The Arizona offense obviously was one of those teams that you wanted a piece of in one way or another, and I'll feel that way going forward. Actually, I'm getting Carson Palmer in almost every mock draft on the planet. I don't know why he keeps falling to me, but I'm late rounding quarterbacking, and he's still there. So I'm like, well, I guess how late do I go? I feel like, you know, he had the better catch percentage. You know, John Brown, I think, is great. I just think he's more of a down the field kind of guy when it comes to everyday usage, especially in PPR leagues. I just think like Michael Floyd's going to get more work.
All right, let's move to a kind of what we would consider maybe a little bit of a grosser decision. Where
Grosser. That's not a word.
It's not. Well, it's yeah, you're right.
It's
You're
appropriate though for the work.
Disgusting.
Yeah, a choice of two running backs that people maybe they don't really want them on their team. A little bit going later in drafts, and I'm talking about Rashad Jennings, old man strength up in New York, versus Isaiah Crowell, who has, as we know, a run first, as we call him, Hugh Jackman Wolverine Jackson up there in Cleveland. So he may have an opportunity. So if Rashad Jennings and the Crow are on the board, who would you lean with?
Oh, you know who I'm getting everywhere? Isaiah Crowell.
All right.
I'm doing it. And I'll tell you why. Everyone wants Duke Johnson, and everyone's like, he's the Giovanni Bernard. Life is so good. Guess what? Jeremy Hill still outscored him in every single format last season. I mean, like, I get it. I'm with you. But Isaiah Crowell is going to be that guy. He's going to fall into the end zone. You're going to have no idea how he did it. You're going to complain about his metrics. Everything just like Jeremy Hill. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, he's going to bring you points. And you can get him so late that I don't care if he tumbles into the end zone. It's still the end zone. If I'm
Right.
tumbling in, I'm still getting points. It doesn't matter.
You're bringing back flashbacks to Lindale White. That's what I'm starting to
Yes.
remember. Falling into the end zone it does count. It still counts.
Yeah, the only problem there is that it is still the Browns, so there's going to be very few total
End zone
fallins.
Certainly. But I think this is about, is it going to be Josh McCown or Robert Griffin III? I think this is why we watch the preseason. This is why we have training camp. I think they're going to go Josh McCown, and I'll tell you why. If they play him, they can get a better idea of everyone else on the team.
Yeah.
If they play RG3, then they're going to have to get an idea of RG3, and everyone else is going to suffer. I think that they're looking at the long term, and I think they have to go McCown this year and maybe RG3 at the end of the season. But I feel like their points will be okay with Josh McCown.
Well, the nice thing is if you start with RG3, you're still going to be able to see Josh McCown.
I agree. No, it's sad but true. No, at some point, either it's going to be a locker room issue or, you know, he's going to make a really bad decision on his feet, which is his thing. It's his jam. I mean, you don't want to, I mean, obviously you never ever want to say anything about injuries, and we're all respectful fantasy players, I'm sure, with the footballers, because you're all respectable guys. But at the same time, you do have to look at that history. I completely agree, in a very dispassionate, not hoping for it way.
Yeah. And would you agree that Duke Johnson is a better option with McCown on the field than RG3?
I think they all are. Literally the whole
go.
roster. Yeah. I mean, the wide receivers, everything, you name it.
All right, I'm going to ask you about a couple more running backs. Another guy that splits the room a little bit, C.J. Anderson. If he's on the board, or Jeremy Langford, which one are you taking?
Okay, so I work for Pro Football Focus, as we discussed, and I love them. And the hate has gone too far on Langford. It's just way too far. The guy's going to get carries. Do you know who John Fox is? Let me tell you.
Oh, we know who he is.
Oh, yeah. He is so conservative.
He's the worst.
It's like, I mean, it's infuriating, but it's exactly why you draft their running backs. He does not want to throw, and especially with Jay Cutler. Would you want to throw? No. So he wants to run the ball. Langford's going to get opportunities. Does he have the metrics? Again, no. But I don't care. If he falls into the end zone, he's going to be in the Jeremy Hill category of like, I don't know how he got in there, but thanks. Thanks, guy. High five. But, you know, I think it's even going to be beyond that, actually. I think they're really going to use him. And he's had a good camp. I think that the hate went a little too far before we even put him in like a T-shirt and shorts to run around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you like Langford, but does that mean you dislike CJ, or is it just a preferential thing based on the volume for Langford?
Well, I like the volume, and I love the ADP. I mean, I can get Langford 2 rounds out.
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm drafting with people that are obviously psycho about fantasy football because it's June. So who knows what the real ADP will be? You know, I think that's also something to, take with a grain of salt. But as far as right now, I can get Jeremy Langford in like the 5th round, 6th round sometimes, depending on the hate. And I'm like, fine, I'll take the lead back in a John Fox offense in that round. Yes, I will.
Absolutely. Just remember the Jordan Howard. We all love the rookie hype, but remember when Forte went down and everything said, okay, Jeremy Langford's going to be the guy. And John Fox still had to start Kadeem Carey because that's who John Fox is. Eventually, sanity won out, and Langford got in there over him. But thank you so much for joining us, Brandon. Where can our listeners find you on Twitter so they can follow your musings?
Yeah, please do. It's Brandin, her FFB, as in her fantasy football. And then you can follow the Her Fantasy Football show, too, at Her Fantasy FB.
Well, that is tremendous stuff. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
All right. Great to talk to Brandon Lee from Pro Football Focus, Sirius XM. That was some good insight. Settling a couple of inner office debates. Maybe not settling them.
Well,
maybe just
taking a stance.
Putting some more ammo in one of our bags or so. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and have some more debates here in the office. Let's talk about Demaryius Thomas and T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton, somebody I'm really rising on. I think Demaryius Thomas, though, in people's minds, is not getting the respect he deserves. So this is a pretty good debate. So talk about these guys.
So why I like this, the way we're looking at this, not only is it, this guy versus this guy. If you're in a redraft situation, you're making a decision on one of these two guys. Look, fluky things happen and maybe you can't, but more than likely you can only pick one of these guys. If you're on the clock, you say, who do I want? D. Thomas, do I want Hilton? And both of these guys are going, I think, a little bit lower than they should because of last year. You had Demaryius Thomas, who still had 176 targets, over 100 catches, 1,300 yards, but 6 touchdowns. And look, this is where it gets a little bit weird for Demaryius Thomas. The past 3 years, 10 touchdowns, 14 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns. Drops down to 6. All right? Now, where that gets a next level of crazy is his touchdown percentage per catch. Right? Here's Demaryius Thomas from 2012. 10%. 10% of his catches were going for a touchdown. That seems high. Yeah. Well, the next year, 15% of his catches are a touchdown. 2014, he drops back down to 10%. And then you have this year, 6%. You had a massive drop.
So what does that mean, though? What does that mean to you?
To me, that means an outlier of performance to me.
Can I contend against that?
Sure.
let me read you. 2007, 10 touchdowns. 2008, 12 touchdowns. 2009, 13 touchdowns. Who am I talking about?
You talking about T.Y. Hilton?
I'm talking about Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh.
Let me read you
That
3
seems
years
really high.
after that in his prime. 6 touchdowns, which is exactly what Demaryius Thomas did. 8 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. What was the problem? It was quarterback play. The quarterback play changed. And so I don't necessarily buy into outlier because I don't see a situation right now where Demaryius Thomas is going to repeat touchdown performance in the way he did before. You know, Larry was at his prime when he went from 3 double-digit years to 6, 8, and 4.
That's fair.
That would be kind of the problem that I have with saying, okay, he's guaranteed to bounce back. Is he capable of it? Yeah, he's in his prime. He just got paid. He's on an offense that, should have the ball, right? The defense is solid, so they should have the ball. I guess I'm unsure about the bounce back of Demaryius Thomas right now.
I completely agree with you. I believe that this is where he stays. I have him statted for 7 touchdowns, 1 more than he had last year. And I think it's fair. I would argue not just quarterback play, but the system. Gary Kubiak, we have seen for a long time. There's enough history on Kubiak to know his offenses, they run the ball, they're famous for running, and they also get that number 1 wide receiver involved quite heavily, and they're great. Think about all the years with Andre Johnson. You're talking about an elite, one of the best wide receivers in the league, would crush it. I mean, you're talking 1,500 yards and back-to-back years, and his career high in touchdowns was 9. He was usually, the last few years, you're talking about, this is Andre Johnson, Hall of Fame Andre Johnson. When he was playing for Houston, he had 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. Those were still some prime years. Oof. So I think that this is a system thing where, look, I like Demaryius Thomas, and the question here is Demaryius Thomas or T.Y. Hilton. I like both guys. I'm actually going to take Demaryius Thomas because I go for targets more than anything when I look at wide receivers. I think his target volume is going to be great. I loved Andre Johnson, even with these poor touchdown numbers, and I'm happy to have that again, but I do not expect Demaryius Thomas to come out and have a top 5 wide receiver season because he's putting up double-digit touchdowns. I just don't think it's going to happen this year.
Let's talk T.Y. Hilton a little bit, though, before we all make our decision. 135 targets, almost 70 receptions, over 1,100 yards, and 5 touchdowns. What was very interesting for Hilton are the targets are extremely similar to the last couple years, but he was down from 82 catches down to 69. And we all know the difference. The difference was Andrew Luck.
Quarterback, yeah.
Andrew Luck was bad, and it was Matt Hasselbeck came in and did his best, played valiantly, but was unable to replicate the Andrew Luck type of success. Now, I personally think that Andrew Luck can bounce back, not necessarily to that 40 touchdown level, but I think that Andrew Luck provides you a much better baseline of Hilton looking like he has the previous years. You're gonna get the over 1,000 yards. You're gonna get around 80 catches. And the touchdowns is the question. Can Hilton finally get you a really, really strong touchdown performance?
Let me ask you this: which one of these guys has a better chance of finishing as a top 5 wide receiver?
Demaryius Thomas.
You think so?
I do.
It's Demaryius
Yeah,
Thomas
he's the
for me as well.
prototypical wide receiver size, red zone threat, high target.
And which one of these guys has a higher floor? Is safer?
It's probably Demaryius Thomas.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
that's why he's 15 in my rankings and Hilton's 20 right now.
Yeah. So for those reasons, I like T.Y. I think he's being undervalued. But when you're in the draft, if Demaryius is on the board, I'm taking DT.
Yeah, 176 targets to 135 is pretty telling too. All right, let's talk some running backs. Jeremy Langford or DeMarco Murray. DeMarco Murray. This is interesting because if I'm reacting to this on the outside as a listener, I think most of us are just saying, well, it's DeMarco Murray.
Really?
Yeah.
You think that's the public sentiment?
Absolutely.
I feel like the public would go Jeremy Langford, personally.
I think I agree with Andy on what they would think public-wise. When I first saw this question, I don't like DeMarco Murray that much. I don't believe that he is healthy, and the former version of DeMarco Murray that we saw, I don't like Tennessee's offense, and I do see upside for Jeremy Langford. And as I was digging into this question, I found myself in every respect saying to myself that I think the floor is so much higher on DeMarco Murray than Jeremy Langford, and I think the ceiling is just about as high when I was looking. So I've got these guys back-to-back in my rankings, but I was surprised. I surprised myself to see that I would take DeMarco Murray over Jeremy Langford without question, even though I don't like DeMarco Murray, which makes me question if I like Jeremy Langford.
And here's something for people to remember, because I feel like even though Andy thinks that Murray is the guy that people will gravitate to, the general sentiment is that DeMarco Murray was just awful last year, despite finishing as a running back too. And this is why he did. He had a 5-game stretch where he was averaging over 18 PPR points a game. In those games, he would have over 100 total yards, 4 receptions a game. So that's a small stint for an entire year, considering how bad he was at certain spots at like the beginning of the year. But I think there's still juice there. I think there is still juice left for DeMarco Murray, and he's now on a team that wants to run the ball exotically and smash people in the face. So I think there's an upside here for DeMarco Murray.
Look, they definitely want to hand the ball off. You had the quote from Mariota last week saying, hey, I'll hand it off 40 times a game if that's what it takes to win. You got Derrick Henry in the mix, but they're not going to utilize him at the level they'll use DeMarco Murray this year unless Murray is like horribly inefficient.
Yeah, if it's gone.
Right now I have Murray as my 19th ranked running back in half point. I've got Langford at 25. So 2 range for both guys. I think Jason's right, though. I think the baseline for Murray is much higher because of the nature of the offense and the utilization therein. And I think he'll catch passes.
Yeah,
I think he'll catch a lot of passes. I mean, they have options. They're not going to run Mariota out of the shotgun as much maybe this year, but they'll have options in the option game. So options in the option game.
That's really a high-level analysis.
I want to remind people, though, Jeremy Langford was tied for 11th in touchdowns. And here, the 2 games, remember when Jeremy Langford was the starter? Well, I guess he wasn't the starter in one of them. It was Kadeem Carey of weirdness. But Langford got the most work. And in that game against San Diego, 18 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown, and 3 for 70 through the air. Next week versus the Rams, 20 carries, 73 yards, a touchdown, 7 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, there is willingness to run the offense through Jeremy Langford if he is, in fact, the guy in Chicago.
And that's really the question, right?
Yes, it is.
So
the question.
I feel like the way the sentiment about Langford right now in the fantasy community is basically people, they throw their hands up and they go, all right.
There was a lot of bad tape.
I guess he's the guy there. So maybe we should draft him.
I think
that's how I
right?
draft.
I
Is
think
that
that's
right?
dead on accurate.
Yeah,
That's the best way to draft.
There's nobody out there that's just saying, look, this guy, his film last year
There's
looked
not
great,
excitement.
and he showed and he's proven that he can do it. The team is behind him. There's a lot of question marks there. Mike, did we get your official vote on who you're taking?
Man, I actually kind of like both these guys. Like I've said, Langford's not my favorite player, but the opportunity is so great. And
I'd love either as a 2. I'd be fine with either as a 2.
And I'm leaning Langford right now.
All right.
Tight end time?
Let's do it.
You know, talk Barnidge, Gary Barnidge, or Ladarius Green. So you're talking about Ladarius Green switching teams, getting the opportunity to be the top dog in Pittsburgh. Heath Miller's gone. Gary Barnidge, huge year last year. Nobody saw it coming.
Yeah.
Not even Gary. I called him earlier. He said, no idea. I had no idea.
Said, don't draft me.
So 125 targets for Barnidge. It's not one of those things where you can compare their statistics to one another from last season. Green only had 63 targets. He had opportunities without Antonio Gates in the offense, but they just, the targets weren't there for him. So will they be there for him in Pittsburgh? And if they're not, is it going to be a situation like Eifert where the red zone utilization will outweigh the need for targets? How do you project Ladarius Green? Because I don't think we've talked about him enough on the show.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's so hard to feel out Ladarius Green because of the team change. Look, we saw the guy is a beast. The guy is an athletically gifted monster. In the 4 games where Gates was on his little mini vacation from the league, Ladarius Green was averaging 7 targets, 55 yards a game, almost a touchdown. I mean, those are great tight end numbers, but that was the San Diego system. You move over to Pittsburgh. We're not exactly sure who's going to fill in for Martavis Bryant. Will it be Sammy Coates? Will Marcus Wheaton finally emerge?
Wait, was that like a Family Guy?
Yeah.
Why? Why? Why are you talking like that?
A little
Wheaton.
bit. But who's going to be that third option? And I took a look back. Heath Miller's best year. His best year was 2012. He had 101 targets, 71 catches, over 800 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And I thought, okay, well, what were the wide receivers? Did they look like that year? And that was when Mike Wallace and Antonio Brown were both getting their fill. I mean, Wallace had 119 targets. Antonio Brown was at 106. So this is before Antonio Brown emerged and became the best wide receiver in the game. But there's certainly an opportunity for Heath Miller, or not Heath Miller, because he's retired, but for Ladarius Green in Pittsburgh. I think he's going to be frustrating.
The storyline for Ladarius Green definitely can play out to make you say, look, this is a sleeper where he could finish the year as one of the top guys. You saw when that suspension came out, they went and signed Ladarius Green as their priority. They said, we need somebody in the red zone. Ladarius Green has been somebody that the fantasy community has loved for years, and we've just been waiting for Gates to die, but he never did. And now it's like free Green. Green is going
figuratively.
Yes, there are a lot of reasons to like him, but the problem is we get so enamored with all the could happens, all of the hopeful storylines that sound great, but not realizing, look, he's also changing teams. They haven't seen him yet. He's coming off an ankle injury surgery, so he hasn't really been involved into the script yet, and we don't know how that will break down. So when there's that many question marks for me,
this is an easy one.
I look over at Gary Barnidge and I say, okay, he has to be heavily involved because there aren't a lot of options there. He was great last year, and I think his baseline is going to be much more reliable. I'm expecting Ladarius Green to be a guy that comes out and has good games and bad games and is very unreliable week to week. I hope he proves me wrong, but that's kind of my projection for him.
Yep, that's how I feel.
Gary Barnidge, on the other hand, I will say this. As I looked into him, I was a little bit sad. I was telling Mike, I'm going to look to trade for Gary Barnidge about week 4 or week 5 or pick him up off of the waivers when RG3 isn't doing well, because I do worry about RG3 for Gary Barnidge. Back in the day, we've always heard it said that, look, RG3, he uses the tight end. He was great with that. But I'm not sure that that's actually true. I think that's just a narrative that got picked up because RG3's rookie year, when he was in Washington, was great. The leading tight end in targets was Logan Paulson with 38 targets, not receptions. And then the next year, in 11 games, Jordan Reed had 59 targets.
More respectable.
And that's
for sure.
And that's, of course, not a full season because you're talking about Jordan Reed.
So I think that like if you just gave him that for the whole season, that's like 85 targets. But last year, Gary Barnidge had 125 targets. So how many can you really realistically give if RG3 is the quarterback? I'm giving him 100 targets. Say he catches 65%. That's 65 touches, but that's down about 15 receptions from last year.
I think that's good perspective. I do think that there are variables in Barnidge's situation that he's done it for only 1 year, a different head coach, an offensive system, different quarterback, different wide receiving core. There are some things that make him riskier. I still would take him over Green in a heartbeat. I think if you handed Green the greatest year of Heath Miller's career, 71, 8, 16, and 8, how happy would you be with Green?
I think you'd be pretty happy.
Would you
personally?
Yeah. Okay.
But it's Gary Barnidge for me as well. If I'm looking at these two,
sounds like a sweep.
All right, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper.
Ooh.
All right, we've got the target monster for the first half of the year in Keenan Allen, 89 targets in the first 8 games of the season. Big contract. And you've got Amari Cooper, somebody who kind of, I think, ran out of gas towards the end of the year, had some injury problems. Still put up a very impressive first season in the NFL, has a gunslinger at quarterback when necessary. How does this lay out to you? Who are you picking from this or that?
All right, well, if you want me to lay it out, it's Keenan Allen all the way for me.
Wow.
All the way. And it's not even a question for me. during that time of his run before the kidney laceration, he was the number 7 wide receiver in standard. Keenan Allen in standard, bump him up to number 4 in PPR. And I took a look, Antonio Gates, he was out the first 4 games. Ladarius Green did have, like we said, he had a few games. But in those games without Antonio Gates, Keenan Allen averaged 11.8 targets a game. When Gates came back, that dropped down to 10. So he was only getting 10 targets a game. And in that time, he's averaging 8 catches, over 90 yards, and a half a touchdown every single game. The numbers are just unbelievable for Keenan Allen. You take a look at the offense. I don't see a big shift. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't continue to feed Keenan Allen.
Who do you pick in a dynasty league?
Oof. Man, that's really tough because Keenan Allen is also still very young. Yeah, man. I think I lean Allen, I think.
He's only 24.
Right.
So
the nice thing about Cooper is you have Derek Carr, who's very young and can
be together for a while,
forever,
like a Kelvin and Stafford when they were both
and
young,
frolic through the woods, together. But it's still, for me, I think Keenan Allen is unbelievable.
Keenan Allen's the same age as Kevin White.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing.
Keenan Allen is definitely very young.
And he's
talented.
25 years younger than Rashad Perryman.
Oh, man. Oh. Burning that Perriman down. Ouch. All right. So coming in, I knew Mike was
look it up.
A runaway. Yeah, do Google image search. A runaway Keenan Allen supporter. I thought coming in, looking at our numbers, that I would be the only person to be on the Amari Cooper side of this. I'm not sure where you stand yet, Andy. And the truth is, this actually does change for me in my own personal rankings. I restatted these guys out in preparation for this show, and they switch in PPR and standard. In a standard league, I will take Amari Cooper over Keenan Allen. In a PPR, I'm going to take Keenan Allen. So the question is, in that half point, our normal preferred settings, who am I going to go with?
I don't know, Jason. Who are you going to go with?
And I think I'm going to go against my rankings and take Amari Cooper, and I'll tell you why. Because they're ranked like 1 point next to each other, right? So they're not like, oh, well, I've got Keenan Allen at 241 points, and
right,
so he's going to score 1 point more. But the reality is...
I hope you're exactly right.
Yeah, the reality is that Amari Cooper came in his rookie year, had a very bad end to his year with his injured lower extremities. And so he has room to me to grow in a major way forward. I don't believe that what Keenan Allen did at the beginning of last year is replicatable. If he played all 16, he was not going to keep that pace. Just like DeAndre Hopkins, who had that incredible first half of the year pace. At the end of the year, I think it was from weeks 12 through 17, he was the 22nd wide receiver. So it averages out.
Putrid defense in San Diego, too.
Yeah, the defense.
Where they had to throw the ball at insane levels. And they lost a lot of games.
You had Stevie Johnson go down to injury. You had Malcolm Floyd at the end of his career. Now Stevie Johnson is back. You've got
4 of those games was without Gates.
Kelvin Benjamin back. You've got, Gates was gone for those games. I think I am cooling a little bit on Keenan Allen in general. And when I look at what's the upside? The upside to me with Keenan Allen is like a really good Jarvis Landry year. He is a guy that's going to average 10 or 11 yards per reception. And while he has been okay in the red zone to date in his career, I still would rather rely on a guy like an Amari Cooper who can get to the outside. And
Cooper can score from 80 yards away.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if you're in any league that rewards bonuses like that, I think that makes a difference too. For me, they're very close. In a full PPR, I have Keenan Allen 13, Amari Cooper 14. Ooh. In other scoring formats, I have Cooper a couple spots ahead of Keenan Allen. They're both high talent guys. If you ask me which one's more likely to have a chance at finishing in the top 3, it's Amari Cooper to me because of the big play ability and the fact that he's going to be targeted in the red zone. He has the ability to make those plays. I think the upside's a little bit higher. I think Keenan Allen obviously got paid, and they're going to lean on him. Both guys are great options. I'm going to go with Amari Cooper.
I will remind you that Keenan Allen's rookie year, he did average almost 15 yards a catch. So he can go big when he needs to go big.
Yeah, you just can't have it both ways, though. You can't have the targets from last year when he was getting those inside kind of slot-type possession roles and put it to the yards per catch that he was getting his rookie year when he wasn't playing that way.
All right, we got one more this or that matchup, and then I'm going to answer a couple of mailbag questions. If we go a little long, no big deal. All right, let's go with the one that I think is the most intriguing of this group here. I'm going to go with Randall Cobb and Jarvis Landry.
Oof.
They are, talk to me about Randall Cobb. Hey, you say the name Randall Cobb out loud. Randall Cobb. What does that evoke? What does that evoke from 2015?
People were very, very disappointed, and rightly so. I think I was at least with most of the fantasy community that when Jordy Nelson went down, I thought that Randall Cobb had the ability to step up and be the one. Not to be Jordy Nelson, certainly not. They're completely different players. But I thought that Randall Cobb could shoulder that offense and be a one and continue to keep things moving for Green Bay. And here's what happened. 129 targets, 79 catches, 830 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And in that time of all year, he gave you basically 6 quality starts. The wide receiver 1 for Green Bay. You can't have that. You can't have that from anybody who you consider to be your wide receiver 2 is only get 6 quality games.
91 receptions down to 79 on the same amount of targets.
Yeah.
1,287 yards down to 829, same amount of targets. Average catch goes from 14 to 10. Touchdowns cut in half. Not good.
Oh, man.
Really a regret. And he just got paid, too, in the offseason.
Yeah.
Really a regression-type year for Randall Cobb in every sense. And so now the question is that what he is? Is last year more what he is than before that? I really don't know the answer to that question because this is the NFL. There are 11 players playing at the same time. So many interdependencies on the offense with Jordy Nelson being gone, Eddie Lacy, at half speed. It's really hard for me to say. These guys are obviously selected for the this or that because they're back-to-back in a lot of our rankings. I think I like Landry a little bit more.
Really?
I do.
That's interesting.
Just because when push comes to shove and they need a first down or they need something in Miami, it's just Landry every time.
Sure. Well, and I looked at Landry because people were like, what can the offense look like? Because last year Landry was unbelievable, 166 targets. That's just outrageous. Now to score only 4 touchdowns on that is also equally outrageous. But here's the thing. He only had 5 games under 10 targets in Jarvis Landry, and people were the talk is now with Adam Gase in town, is everything it's the Devontae Parker show. The kid who has not shown us very much. He missed most of last season because of a foot injury in training camp. He ended up behind Rashad Matthews. Now, Parker did show us a little bit towards the end of the year, but I looked back at Adam Gase. What has he done as far as targets, breaking those things down in his offensive coaching career? Now, you have to understand these are kind of inflated because these are the Peyton Manning years when Peyton Manning was great. However, 2013, the Broncos, Demaryius Thomas, the alpha, had 142 targets, but the number 2, Eric Decker, had 136. The next year, Demaryius Thomas, 184 targets, but Emmanuel Sanders still had 141 targets. So I think that that to throw Jarvis Landry completely away is I don't think that's the pertinent correct thing to do right now. Having said that, if the targets do go away from Jarvis Landry, let's say he drops from 166 down to, in the 115, 120 area, then you probably have a problem with Jarvis Landry. I don't think the production will be there. He has to be fed the ball to give you that level that you expect for fantasy.
All right, give me a verdict, Jason.
I'm going to go Randall Cobb. It's very similar to me to the last question between Cooper and Keenan Allen. I'm going to take the guy that I think can be more involved in the red zone, have the bigger plays on the better offense. That's the way I'm going to go.
All right, let's get into the mailbag.
Mailbag.
Oh, that's right. And if you're watching on YouTube, you see a new mailbag graphic that has been created.
Don't worry, my face is still there.
Your face is still there. All right, if you have a question for the show, we love answering questions. It's perfect. Visit the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. Click the Submit a Question button in the header. Send us your question. We answer a few on the show. basically every episode. You can also find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can dial our voicemail hotline, 302-464-TFFB, and we can hear your beautiful voice ask us a question. But when you do so, please step out of the tunnel that you're driving through and call us on like a phone that we can understand your voice.
If you're driving through a tunnel, please continue to drive.
Well,
through
that's
the tunnel.
true.
Don't jump out of your car.
It's bad advice.
That's my advice.
Hold on, I got to take this call.
Please leap out of your vehicle and dial us at any moment. No, sometimes we get really, really good questions, but they're so inaudible that we cannot play them on the show, and it makes we sit around and we cry over that. So don't let that happen. We don't want to cry. All right, drafting with tiers. This question comes in from Leon Papa 99 in Illinois. Considering the inequality of value regarding players in a roster, what is the best way to get the most out of using tiers when you draft? So talk really briefly about what tiers are and how to utilize them in your draft.
And not our tiers, because the call
not the crying
was not
tiers.
good.
No. We're talking about draft tiers.
With tiers, what you want to do, and if you're in our Ultimate Draft Kit, we've already made our tiers. If you're making your own tiers, you're grouping players together that this guy might come after the next guy, one in order, but you see a big gap in the production you're going to get there. And so you kind of group guys together with these guys could be ones, these guys could be twos. And so you look at the disparity in positions like this question is alluding to, and you say, oh, man, there are a lot of running backs left, and there are very few wide receivers left in this tier. So I'm going to grab one of these last wide receivers so that I can get the most value out of that, or vice versa. And I would say usually it's probably going to be more vice versa, where the running backs end up a little bit thinner. And if all things are equal, and it's like I like a player in this tier, I like the same tier in running back and wide receiver, you're probably going to end up going running back in that situation because of your tiers. But that's a little bit how you use them.
Okay, so let's go ahead and I think that helps. It's kind of, another word might be levels, right? Like production levels between players. Once you see that gap, take advantage of a guy in a higher tier in another position. All right, at quarterback, Mark in Phoenix says, when should I draft a quarterback if the touchdowns are worth 6 points? So a lot of leagues have 6-point touchdowns for quarterbacks. Some have 4. This league's a PPR league. Does it make a difference to when you draft a quarterback?
It doesn't make a difference to me, Mark. I'm still looking for value. And just another reminder, when we say late-round quarterback, we don't mean that you're going to take it to the limit. We mean that you're going to go and you're just going to get value for a guy a position you only play one person. Now, this is different for a 2-quarterback league, but in a 1-quarterback, you just wait because you can get value. The gap difference between the guys who finish, that 3 to 12 for a quarterback, there's a very small point margin. So you just want to maximize your value and load up your team with running backs, wide receivers. So where am I drafting a quarterback? Generally speaking, I'll start thinking about it around the 8th round. 8th round and up, unless there's like a smoking value, Rodgers in the 6th, then I'm going to take Rodgers. But generally, 8th round, 9th, 10th, that's around where I'm looking.
And I would say this to Mark and to all of our other callers. When we talk quarterbacks, our standard preferred system is 6 point per passing touchdown. So a lot of times people go, well, okay, I hear you guys talk, you're down on quarterbacks or you don't draft them late, but what about the 6 point? No. That is in 6 point. That's what we're talking about. That's the format we play. So that's just for everyone to know.
Yeah.
So only take them down. If you're in a standard, only take them down.
All right, Latavius Murray question from Jake in Indianapolis. He said, last season Murray showed a consistent drop in yards per carry in the second half of games. Many point to that as being a reason why he might have been overworked. One of the teams, so the Raiders spent a lot of time this offseason pursuing different running backs, not sold on Murray being the guy, he says, ended up with DeAndre Washington. He's with you guys, and I guess he might mean Jason and myself, that he's high on Murray, especially with the solidification of the offensive line. But how much do you factor the clear signs of fatigue he showed in the second half? It's a good question. I guess we have to answer that one.
Yeah, I had no clue this question was in here. This is a perfect platform to talk about something that I wanted to talk about on this show, which is DeAndre Washington. I like Latavius Murray a lot. I like him because of his opportunity and his talent, but the opportunity there for DeAndre Washington is phenomenal. Look, not very often do running backs play 16 games a year. Latavius Murray played 16 games last year. That's part of why he finished as the quarterback or as the running back 12. just simply because he played in all 16 games. I was really surprised looking into it how few running backs who are their starter actually played in 16. DeAndre Washington is running behind that same offensive line. To answer his question, I don't really factor in the fatigue that much at all. Players are going to get fatigued at the end of the year. Coming into this season, he should have a little bit more rest with DeAndre Washington. But I see DeAndre Washington as a perfect handcuff. To me, I am going in my drafts for Latavius Murray and DeAndre Washington because I don't have any fear of other people there, and I think whoever is the guy is going to be productive on a team that wants to run the ball and can run the ball.
And I'll say this just real quick. For as much as I crap on Latavius Murray, look, I recognize that the opportunity is there. I think the Raiders have a great offensive line.
Yeah, I think they might have a top 3.
And at the time of this recording, I still have Murray ranked higher than Andy.
At the time of this recording? Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, what did I say at the beginning of the show? I moved him up a little bit last week. I'm going to move him up again today.
So you move him like he moves in the NFL. Just
slowly.
Really, really short bursts.
And my moves are inefficient. So, hey, I do want to remind everybody before we close out the show today, we got a show breaking out on Thursday. We got a show on Saturday. We'll drop into your pocket. Make sure if you listen on iTunes,
subscribe.
Hit the subscribe button. Support the show. Leave us a review on iTunes if you enjoy it. And a reminder to check out footclanvote.com. I think the last day that you can really vote is today. So get your vote in.
Maybe it might be Wednesday, though. So if it's Wednesday, still vote.
Yeah, still give it a shot.
If it's Thursday, still try and vote.
Probably Tuesday and Wednesday.
If it's Friday and the award has been given out, just try and vote.
Yeah, and today's show, after the show, we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about our favorite childhood ice cream treats.
Ooh.
So get that in your brain.
Ooh.
That's over at YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube if you want some extra content. See the studio. See the pristine auction.
See my face.
What is that? A Jordan Reed jersey. We got some more ones coming in too. So we'll keep those rotating through. Anything else you guys got on your mind?
Make sure you head over to fantasyjocks.com for all of your trophy and draft board needs. Use promo code BALLERS and save some quiche.
Yeah. So looking forward to the trip to Chicago. We'll have a show still on Thursday. We'll record that tomorrow, I think. Today.
Who knows? But it'll be there on Thursday.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.